Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to figure out if companies are really shining or just silver plating things for you. Today we are diving into abrdn Silver ETF Trust's latest 10Q report. And let me tell you, this one might have some real glimmers of profit or just a whole lot of tarnished metal. Before we get into the nitty gritty, if you love getting these kinds of clear, no-nonsense breakdowns of complex corporate filings, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. And hey, we've built a fantastic community over on Discord to keep the conversation going after these videos, so make sure to join up. Link is in the description. Alright, let's get straight to it. This is abrdn Silver ETF Trust quarterly report, and the main event for us is always the financial statements. They're telling us about their financial health up to the 30th of September, 2025. Think of this as a snapshot of exactly how much silver they're holding and what it's worth. First up, their statement of assets and liabilities. This is where we see what they own and what they owe. At the end of September 2025, their biggest asset by far is their investment in silver, valued at a whopping $3,004,743,000. That is right, over $3 billion in silver. Now, when we look back to the 31st of December 2024, it was around $1,414,591,000. So in just about 9 months, their silver holdings have more than doubled in value. That is a serious jump, and it tells us silver prices have been on a pretty big run. On the other side, their liabilities are incredibly small. Just $718,000 in fees payable. This means they don't really owe much to anyone, which is always a good sign. Now let's zero in on exactly how much silver they have. The schedules of investments give us the details. As of the 30th of September 2025, they held a little over 65 million ounces of silver. The cost for that was about $1.8 billion, but its fair value, what it is worth on the market, was over $3 billion. This huge difference between cost and fair value is where the profit, or at least the unrealized gain, comes from. Look at the ounces at the 31st of December 2024. It was about 48.9 million ounces. So not only did the price of silver skyrocket, but they also bought significantly more silver during this period. This next part, the statements of operations, tells us how they made or lost money during the quarter and the 9 months. And wow, look at this for the 3 months ending the 30th of September 2025. The change in unrealized gain on investment in silver shot up by $625,013,000. That is a massive jump, showing how much the value of their silver holdings increased in just 3 months. For the 9 months of 2025, this number is even bigger, a staggering $945,030,000. This is the big story here. The value of their silver holdings has increased by almost $1 billion in less than a year. So what does this mean for the average investor? Well, look at the net increase in net assets per share. For the 3 months of 2025, it was $9.99. And for the 9 months of 2025, it was $17.49. This means that for every share of the abrdn Silver ETF, investors saw a gain of nearly $10 in just that single quarter and over $17 for the 9-month period. That is a pretty impressive return, driven almost entirely by the rising price of silver. Let's look at the per share performance. To start the 3-month period in July 2025, the net asset value per S-share was $34.29. By the end of September, it had jumped to $43.98. That is nearly a $10 increase per S-share in just 3 months, for the 9 months. It started at $27.59 at the beginning of the year and ended at $43.98. That is a gain of over $16 per S-share. This shows the power of owning physical silver assets when the market is moving in your favor. Now, even though silver prices did all the heavy lifting, we should quickly look at expenses. The expense ratio is 0.30%. This is pretty standard for an ETF like this. They also mention a voluntary waiver of fees, which is nice, bringing the gross expense ratio down from 0.45%. So, while the price of silver is the main driver of returns here, the fees are not eating up a huge chunk of the profits, which is good. They mention their silver is valued based on the London Bullion Market Association, or LBMA silver price. This is the industry standard for silver pricing, so we know they are using a reliable benchmark. And when it comes to how they value their silver, they classify it as level 1. This means they're using unadjusted quoted prices from active markets. This is the best case scenario for valuation because it means the prices are readily available and not based on complex models or estimates. So the $3 billion we see for their silver holdings is based on real time market prices. Looking at the changes in ounces over time really paints a picture of growth. For the 3 months ending the 30th of September 2025, they saw over 10 million ounces added through creations, while redemptions were 0. For the 9 months, they added over 20 million ounces through creations and redeemed less than 4.5 million ounces. This trend shows a lot more people were buying into the ETF than selling out, likely to ride the silver price wave. The main expense for the trust is the sponsor's fee, which they pay by transferring actual silver. They are voluntarily reducing this fee to 0.30%, which is a good thing for investors. It means more of the silver's value stays with the shareholders. Over the 9 months of 2025, the sponsor's fee, even after waivers, was about $4.25 million. That sounds like a lot, but when you consider the nearly billion-dollar increase in the value of their silver holdings, it's a relatively small percentage. In terms of liquidity, the trust doesn't really hold cash. They hold silver. They are not aware of any trends that are likely to impact their liquidity needs, which makes sense since their primary asset, silver, is highly liquid. They sell silver only to cover expenses not taken care of by the sponsor, and that has been minimal. Now, here is the crucial part for any investment like this: concentration of risk. As expected, their sole business is investing in silver. This means their entire financial health is tied to the price of silver. The report lists factors that can affect silver prices, like global supply and demand, inflation expectations, currency exchange rates, interest rates, and even global economic events. This is your standard disclaimer, but it is important to remember that if the price of silver tanks, this ETF will tank with it. There is no diversification here. Okay, let's talk strategy and my take on this. The abrdn Silver ETF Trust is essentially a direct play on the price of silver. Their financial statements clearly show that the massive increase in their net assets is almost entirely driven by the surge in silver prices during 2025. They've managed their expenses well, with the sponsor waiving a significant portion of their fee, which benefits shareholders. The growth in ounces of silver held due to creations exceeding redemptions indicates investor confidence and a belief that silver prices will continue to rise. However, the concentration of risk cannot be overstated. This isn't an investment that will weather a broad market downturn, if that downturn is driven by factors other than inflation. For example, its fortunes are completely tied to one commodity. If silver prices were to suddenly plummet due to a global economic crisis or a shift in government policy, this ETF would suffer significant losses. The management section highlights that the trust doesn't have officers or employees, which is typical for an ETF structure, but it reinforces that the performance is driven by market forces rather than active management decisions. So, in conclusion, abrdn Silver ETF Trust has had a phenomenal 9 months ending the 30th of September 2025, with its value growing substantially due to the bull run in silver. If you believe silver prices are going higher, this ETF offers a straightforward way to participate. But remember, the risk is that silver prices could also fall significantly and all your eggs are in that one shiny basket. Alright, that is our breakdown of abrdn Silver ETF Trust's latest report. What is your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.